On this vote, the yeas are 225, the nays are 201. The resolution is adopted.
And idiocy reached a new level last night. House adjourning today for 5 weeks. They need a break here, but not, of course, before they pass the measure to sue the president. Wednesday, House Republicans, as we told you in this program, approved the plan to file a lawsuit against the president for taking executive action on Obamacare. Yes, Republicans say the president violated the Constitution by enforcing some elements of the health care law, but not others. Democrats unanimous in opposition, and even 5 Republicans joined them. Republicans charged that the president ought not to be allowed to pick and choose which laws or parts of the laws he will choose to enforce.
The base of the Republican Party that tried to defeat President Obama in 2012, voted against him in 2008, and disagree with him on the issues, think this is what is available to them. It is wrong. It is a waste of time. It is a waste of money. It is a distraction from the important issues so important to our people.
Are you willing to let any president choose what laws to execute and what laws to change? Are you willing to let anyone tear apart what our founders have built?
Republicans do not have time to raise the minimum wage, but they have time to sue the President of the United States. They do not have money to feed the children, help the American people, but they want a blank check to sue the President.
There, of course, you saw both Nancy Pelosi and before that John Boehner and Steny Hoyer before them both sounding off yesterday on it. Now, a federal judge is going to be the one to decide if the House actually has any standing to sue the president. Meanwhile, the president himself, he laughed the whole thing off yesterday, calling the move a waste of time and money.
They have announced that they're going to sue me for taking executive actions to help people. So, you know, they're mad because I'm doing my job. And by the way, I've told them, I said, I'd be happy to do it with you. So the only reason I'm doing it on my own is because you don't do anything.
At the same time, it should be noted that House Republicans were forced to pull an emergency spending bill aimed at addressing the crisis at the border. As you know, immigrants pouring over, many of them children trying to enter the country illegally on a daily basis. The House expected to meet tomorrow to decide how to proceed, but definitely a lot of internal fighting within the party on that issue. Give you an idea, polling-wise, a new poll coming out by a Religion Research Institute shows that nearly 70% of Americans believe border kids ought to be treated as refugees, while 27% say the children should be treated as illegal immigrants and deported. Okay, leave immigration to the side for a second. I'm going to ask you to counsel for a second, Bill, Republicans who have a chance in November to take the Senate back, right? At least a 50-50 shot, I'd argue, and even make more gains in the House. What do you tell them? Do you say this is the right way to spend time? Forget about policy, good or bad policy. Even Antonin Scalia said, this is not the place of the courts here. You guys are wrong. You don't drop it. Forget that it's good or bad legislation or potential legislation. Would you tell them this is good politics?
Yeah, just so as not to be chicken, I think they are absolutely 100% right in their objections to the governor doing things outside of the Constitution.
That was a slip. You meant the president.
Let me see, the president. Excuse me.
Sure.
We're talking about Moreland. The president. However, I don't think this is the way to do it. I think it's a distraction. It may play well in some states. Who knows? I mean, it's not been done before. I don't think it's even clear how the lawsuit moves forward. Like, what do they do next? This is all kind of new ground. I would not advise this move, but I think they're absolutely right.
What do you say to Republican lawmakers, who head home to their districts for 4 weeks and have a town hall meeting where people are like, what are you doing suing the president?
Depends where the district is. I think it really depends where the district is. I mean, you're saying, I think the American people are tired of a government or a president that decides what laws he's going to enforce. I think that's right. I think enough Americans are sick of that.
I'll flip it to you. Noam, now you're counseling President and Democrats as they go home for break, okay? And Congress's approval overall is low. They're looking at pretty scary numbers come November here to keep the Senate, and probably a lot of them, and the landscape's not favorable for them with an unpopular president. Do you double down on, look what they did, they just sued the president, or do you focus on something else instead?
I think you do both, and I think the president had it exactly right in those comments. I mean, let's remember, this is a gang in Congress that has obstructed measures to improve the economy, that is incapable of adopting comprehensive immigration reform, that put the full faith and credit of the United States at risk with the debt ceiling, that has cast dozens and dozens of meaningless votes to repeal Obamacare. You've got a quarter of the caucus that probably believes the president is not an American citizen. Half the caucus that would probably impeach him if they could.
Amen.
And so they opt for this ridiculous impeachment light in order to appease their base. So I think we traditionally think there's some distinction between the Republican establishment and the Tea Party. But the closer you look, the more those distinctions absolutely vanish, because they are marching in lockstep either out of conviction or out of fear. And there has never been a time in our modern history when one of our major parties has been so incapable of governing in a mature way. So
Okay.
we need to cast a spotlight
I got
on
that, but here it is. We've got the two different sides. We talk about this every night, don't we, guys? That's pretty good about it. We got the two different sides. But somewhere in the middle, Ralph, give me my middle shot here, right? Somewhere in the middle is that 10% who's just tired. And they're tired. They don't love the president. They don't love the Republicans. But they're just tired that nothing's getting done. And to them, who unfortunately don't watch shows like this every night, they just say a pox on both their houses. And you know what? In the end, somebody's in charge. That's the president. So it's his fault that nothing's getting done. If you're a Democrat, how do you convince him it's not the president's fault?
With the facts. Because if you hold everyone responsible, in effect, you're holding nobody responsible. In order for anyone to be accountable in government,
you
you've
got
got
this president responsible. This president has totally checked out of his job. This president has shown no leadership in Congress, no willingness to deal with them. All he does is campaign around this country and put the backdrop behind him. He has shown no leadership whatsoever.
Bill, that's absurd. And in fact,
not absurd.
In fact, that's the reverse of what these Republicans in Congress are saying. They're saying he's being too aggressive in his job, too aggressive.
A vast
in
majority
pursuing his policy
of
priorities.
Americans agree with what I'm saying, that this president is not in charge.
He
is not acting presidentially.
He has reached out repeatedly to the Congress from the very beginning.
He hasn't with what? With Obamacare that had not one Republican vote?
And from the beginning, exactly. And from the beginning,
Exactly, that's reaching out to
the
Republicans.
Republican leadership made clear that they were not prepared to deal. They were not prepared to give even the slightest degree in order to achieve
the Republicans
a
weren't
compromise.
willing to accept Obamacare the way it was written. They had other recommendations. The president said, you can get on board as long as you agree with my way.
You have Mitch
That's the way it
McConnell
was done.
saying from day one, our chief priority is making this a one-term president.
You know what, guys?
And they've
Listen to
executed from
these
that
two
point.
very eloquently debate this. The scariest thing is we could be in 2009, 2010, 2011, 12, or 13. It's the same conversation we're having.
At least we have health care and Osama bin Laden's dead. So there's that difference.
Richard, I really believe that the president should hire this mayor for his chief of staff. I really believe that.
Okay,
I really
and I'm
believe
trying to
that.
get to a break here. When we come back, the NFL's Ray Rice breaks his silence following suspension here, and we're going to talk about that and other sports stories. Stay with us. We'll be right back.